Yeah, direct misfire, aiming up hits. Bensome, Huw and Sellick are in the mix. Follow along, stay up to date. Comment, like, subscribe today.
Hello champs, and welcome once again to another Direct Misfire Missive. Joining me today, as always, is Sellick.
Hey.
As well as Huw.
Yo.
As we discuss our updated thoughts on 3rd edition, the changes in the Aussie Masters rankings, and we've got some info on a couple of upcoming events. So pull up a seat, grab a drink, and let's get into it. Now, before we start our meat and taters for this cast, I've got another little project that I'm going to work on for this year.
Bit of a preamble.
Last year, yeah, we had the Cloud Giant Army last year, and this year I'm thinking I want to do something a bit more fun in terms of playing instead of creating this document that takes ages. So I'm going to create a Kings of Pit Fighters. So it's kind of like an Arena of Death thing, but I need your assistance in choosing the champion to represent each of the races.
Okay.
So I've gone through and written them all out. We're not going to go through them all in this cast. We can do just a few for each cast. And I have a couple of rules for this, for who, like the pool of heroes that we're going to choose to fight it out. Because at the end, this is going to determine which is the best hero in all of Kings of War.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
So I decided that it's going to be like an actual game. So it's going to be 2 foot by 2 foot arena. There's going to be 2 small groves of trees and 1 obstacle that makes up the terrain. It's just one-on-one fight. And there's only 5 turns, and then you kind of roll off for the first turn. And the last hero standing is going to be the victor. So the
how
hero
many
couldn't
heroes fight at one time?
1v1.
1 and 1 at the moment.
Right. Cool.
Yep. Heroes cost can't exceed 150 points. And I've just also put in this rule that any living legend heroes, I've just whacked on another 15 points onto their price because they're pretty good. And in this 1-and-1 thing, they can be a bit ridiculous.
Can
Okay,
they,
so
do you
it's-
reckon? I feel like they pay points for a lot of abilities that aren't necessarily relevant to one-on-ones a lot of the time.
Yeah, I've read through them all extensively, and I thought, yeah, I think that suits.
Okay, fair enough.
But also, with this, because there can be quite a bit of a difference between points, and to make it a bit more balanced, the hero that has fewer points, they can take any combination of items, more than 1 if they wanted to, up to the point limit of their opponent.
Interesting.
Can they
But you
both
can't
die?
fly. Yes, they can. You can have a double KO in this. And I'm also thinking for ranged heroes, spellcasters or those sneaky vanguarding shooty boys, that if a hero is disordered, they can kind of shrug it off on a 3+, kind of like Headstrong, but for disordered. Just so if they want to fight, they can't just get whacked in the head and then they're pretty much done. Okay, and you can't be mounted as well, because a flying dude or a mounted dude just zipping about shooting and the other guy not being able to chase him is pretty poor. Okay. And the double 1 rule, that's not really a thing, so it'll still take the hero off if you roll a double 1, but the opponent gets to make some attacks back. It's like a death throw type thing.
Okay, interesting.
And that can also cause a double KO if those
And
attacks.
if it's a double KO, they're both out, right?
Yep, they're both out. Fight better next time, guys. Okay, so we'll just say we'll go through 4 armies. I think there's a few, but we'll just do 4 for today, and we'll see how that kind of lines up to make sure that we've got enough heroes at the end of the year.
Okay.
So starting off with Basileia, I've also incorporated Brotherhood in this as a theme tack on, because some of them aren't good and some armies only have like 1 hero as a theme list. So the 3 that I've got to choose from, we're only choosing 1 in this. We've got the Dictator, the Exemplar Paladin, and the Abbess. And just to go through the stats quickly, they're all speed 5, they're all hitting on 3s. The Dictator and Exemplar have 5 attacks, whereas the Abbess has defense 5, defense 5, defense 4.
Okay.
Dictator has 4 attacks, Exemplar has 5, Abyss has 6. And the nerves are 12, 14, 13, 15. So they're all fairly close, and they're all like, there's 90, 105, 90 points. So they're all fairly similar in points there. But the Abyss has more attacks, lower defense.
So we're just picking one of them to put in the arena for the
Just
army?
one. It's like a champion for that army.
I like the Abyss because we're not going to get that many female characters necessarily, or maybe not as many at least. And
Oh, there's
she's-
a few in here, yeah.
I reckon defense won't matter as much. She's just got heaps of attacks.
So, well, it's one
Yeah.
more, isn't it? One more attack.
It's 6 attacks. She's got Crushing 1, Iron Resolve, Vicious, and Wild Charge.
Vicious is good, though.
Dictator has Crushing 2 and Duelist.
I mean, Duelist has got to be a bit powerful in this, maybe even OP in this particular configuration.
Yeah, I made sure to go through them because that's why I had to reduce the points limit because the Vampire would be pretty good in the arena, 7 attacks with Duelist. So not a lot of Duelists have a high amount of attacks. I think Abyss is probably one of the highest.
So 5 attacks was for the Duelist, was it?
For the Dictator, he has 4.
4. So 8 attacks at Crush 2. That's kind of good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
At what, 100
He may
points?
not get the charge though because he doesn't have Wild Charge like the Abyss does.
Meh.
Meh. What was the other one? The Exemplar.
What's he got going for it?
Crushing 1, Elite, Headstrong. He's just got higher nerve and like 5 attacks instead of 4 or 6. So it's kind of in the middle there, but he doesn't have the Duelist or Wild Charge. But you don't care about Wild Charge. So who are we going here?
I reckon the Abyss. Abyss?
The Abyss?
Yeah, I'm voting Abyss
Abby.
as well. I reckon she's a bit cooler. And old mate with the Duelist is just, he feels a bit over the top.
Alright.
100 points for 8 attacks at Crush 2. Yeah, that's kind of good. No, get rid of it. Abyss.
Abyss.
Alright, sure. So that's that one. And then we go into the Dwarves. So we have a Dwarf Lord, the Berserker Lord, and I've thrown in Rawdon, the Dwarf. So the Berserker's slightly faster, speed 5, as opposed to speed 4 on the other two guys. They all hit on 3s. The Dwarf Lord and Rawdon are defense 6. The Berserker Lord's only defense 4. The Dwarf and Rawdon both also have 5 attacks, whereas the Berserker has 7. The Lord and Rawdon are 13, 15, and the Berserker Lord's Fearless 16, and they're sitting at 105, 110, and 125 for Rawdon.
I like the idea of having a defense 6 guy for Dwarves because it just represents them better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to agree with you there. I think it represents it. It also takes out those people that only have CS1.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be just really rock, paper, scissors. And this guy's the rock. The rock.
So the Lord is Crushing 1, and that's about it. He's got Headstrong, but meh. That's it. So it's just Crushing 1.
Yep. So, but he will get items. So that'll be good.
Only if the opposition is fewer points.
Yeah, he's solid without any items though. He's still a defense 6. He's like, and if we take the generic Lord, we can name him, I assume. So we can call him.
Of course. Yeah.
Rock the Dwayne Johnson.
Just
something.
Dwayne.
And what
Dwayne.
Rawdon has over the Dwarf Lord, he's got Crushing 2, and he's got the once per... now I'm angry, so you can basically force the opponent to reroll all successive rolls to damage.
Yeah, he's pretty good. He's pretty dwarfy.
But he's 140 points because I've tacked on that 15-point tax.
Could be cool to have a high cost dwarf, I guess.
I don't know, up to you. What do you reckon? Lord or Rawdon? I reckon Lord, and then you can name him.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to go with Lord as well.
Okay, so that's 2 down, we'll go 2 more.
All right.
Next is the Elves. We've got the Elven King.
Mm-hmm.
What's that, an Archwraith, because I've also put in the Sylvankin, as well as Madriga the Elf.
Can Madriga shoot in this?
Yeah, she can shoot. Yep. And like I was saying before, if she gets into combat and is disordered, on a 3+ on their turn, they can shrug it off.
Ah, then you'd go Madriga.
So she'll be 140 points.
Mm-hmm.
And what does she bring? So she's speed 7, so she's quite quick. Hitting on 3s. Her shooting is on 3s.
She's got Elite and Vicious.
4 defense and 3 attacks. The Elven King has 5. The Archwraith has 6.
It's very elfy that she can run around and put a few wounds on things before they get stuck into her.
But we don't get to name her. And there is some terrain and stuff on this as well, so the opponent can try and run for cover before trying to...
Yeah, if they're going to do that, though, she'll eventually just pip them all off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I reckon Madriga.
Okay, so she's going to represent the Elves. And then the last one for today is the Northern Alliance.
My current faves, Northern Alliance.
Yeah, you have a bit of a crush, don't you?
I do.
You're lusting for them, aren't you? Gross. So we have just the standard Lord. We've also got an Ice Blade as well as Olaf, the barbecue. Or Barbarian.
Or
So the Lord's 5-3-5-5. So these speed, melee, defense, and attacks. 13-15 for 110. Ice Blade is 6-3-4-6. So 1 extra attack. Slightly faster, slightly lower defense, but fearless 14. And Olaf the barbecue has 5-3-4-6. So like the Lord, but 1 more attack, 1 less defense, and he's fearless 16. Now he'll cap out on points at 150.
Yeah, he's a potato. 6 attacks, crush 2 at 150 points is not great. He's solid. Defense is only 4, but nerve 16's nice. But I mean, if you were the Northern Alliance, you'd send your Ice Blade in, wouldn't you? I mean, she's the duelist.
But he's also, Olaf, he's got the unstoppable whirlwind, so once per game, declare that you're using the ability, and before he attacks, he gets 12 attacks instead of 6. So it's like a one-turn duelist. Crushing 2, vicious, wild charge. Ice Blade's crushing 1, duelist, wild charge.
There's a lot of pressure on this decision. I think you've got to go Olaf there, but if he can use that every single battle, he'll just charge in first attack, 12 attacks with vicious. It's hard to turn down.
If he charges in, because he's only speed 5.
But he's got
he does have wild charge.
Yeah, I like...
And nobody's mounted, so...
And he's
but
got
you
such a Conan vibe to him. He's 150 points. Everybody's going to get to use some wicked item against him. But even so, I reckon he's going to be pretty good.
There are a couple of quick characters on this in this pool. FYI.
Well, I just feel that if we don't pick Olaf here, anyone that's sort of been collecting this army is going to hate us.
Okay.
Yeah, true. They're not really about the elves. They're more
All right.
about the big old barbarians. I'm with you, though.
That's it.
Olaf.
Olaf the barbecue, it is. All right, so that'll do for today's cast, and I think next one we'll throw in another 4, and we'll just keep going like that until we have no more, or we just don't do any episodes for the rest of the year, and then we get cut short. All right, so with that out of the way, what is our first topic?
It was rankings. After the Masters in Australia, there was a little bit of turbulence across the Facebooks and the Twitters about maybe our rankings don't represent our actual nature of play over in Australia. So, yeah, it sort of went back and forth. I'm sure that if you go into the Facebook Australia pages and a few others, that you can scroll and scroll and scroll through bodies of text where people were defending or not defending the current system of rankings. And in the end, they got together and created a nominated panel of people across Australia, so one from each of our states here, and they put together a new ranking, or agreed on a new rankings that did represent our current system of play.
So what was the old system? Do you know, Sellick? Do you know what was it based on that we were using originally?
Yeah, sure. I don't know all the algorithms and the sums. I haven't quite looked at that, but you could go in and have a look. But effectively, it was based on our old Warhammer fantasy days, where there was a lot of 2-day events which really did represent the majority of our tournaments. And what that did mean is that if you played in a 2-day event, you would generally get more points. And if you only transfer that over to Kings of War, that meant that we've only got, 3 or 4 2-day events in Australia at the moment. So if you played in 2 of those, you would be at the top of the ranking points.
Right.
And it would be really, really difficult to breach the gap through 1-day events unless you were podium pretty much in
if you did well
something
at
over
those
20.
two, obviously. But yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, so that's all I was getting at as well. Not so much the algorithms, but the thrust of it was the thrust of it was that's right. But a bigger emphasis on those bigger tournaments, because back in the day, a number of years ago, like you wouldn't bother with a 1-day tournament. The culture was like 2-day tournaments are where it's at. It's a big event. You know, you go out and drink with the lads on a Saturday night and whatever else. But I don't know. I feel like the community's gotten older, and some other factors have been involved. And of course, it's not all the same people that were on the Warhammer crowd back in the day. And it's boiled down to pretty much nationally. one days seem to be more the vibe at the moment. There's probably other outside cultural factors as well, like people don't have as much time for these events for one reason or another, and so yeah, particularly like outside of the big hubs of Kings of War being like Melbourne and Canberra, in places like Adelaide and Perth and stuff, they just, as you say, they just don't really have any option for it. So especially if you're somewhere like Perth, which for Americans out there, that's like further than from the east coast to the west between Sydney and Perth, pretty much. Like
it's like the direct opposite on the other side of the country.
Yeah, put it this way, to drive to Perth from Melbourne, even, which is closer than Sydney, takes about 5 or 6 days. It's not close. So, yeah, I mean, if you're in that kind of position and you're looking at big money on tickets to fly or whatever, if you probably get like 3 first places in a one day or something, you'll probably qualify. But outside of that, maybe you'd need to travel, and it's a little bit it was a little bit unfair for some of those more distant regions in particular.
That's right. So on that long trip there, that's actually got the longest straight bit of road in the world. So it goes for 90 miles for our Americans, or 146.6 kilometres in a straight line. That's a long way.
And Melbourne to Perth is 2,123 miles.
That's
yeah,
it.
So good luck driving for a tournament. You're not going to do it. Most of that's desert and fuck all as well. It's not like there's fun things to see on the way.
So effectively, they all got together. There's this big group of Masters people, and they decided on a new ranking system. And that ranking system is effectively for a one-day event. It's the number of players over 10 plus 60. And if you're in a 2-day event, it's number of players plus 70 as the top prize. So if you came first in that and there was 10 players, you'd get 70 points in a one-day event, or you'd get 80 in a 2-day event.
And it's still a little bit weighted towards more games, is that correct?
No, it's not. I think it's just like based on the actual event.
Is a one-day event with 3 games worth the same as one with 4?
I think so.
Okay. So you can definitely luck your way in with a few good appearances at 3-game one-dayers where you just have perhaps 2 games against whoever and then like one tough game which you get reasonably lucky in, and there you are, first place in that tournament. But then everyone has that equal opportunity, so
yeah.
No. But that's not really the talking point here, mate. I know that we've discussed the rankings, but after we went through all of the old rankings, where currently our Huw Evans was sitting at 4th, we rejigged it all, and we got a new winner. And that new winner is you, Huw. You are Australia's #1 player at the moment.
Woo!
such bullshit.
You still can't beat me.
So I'm not sure how much you paid this panel, but it seems to be working for you.
Did you help write the formula?
No. They just love me. So they're like, wait, hang on, guys. Just a second. After we did the numbers, Hugh's only 3rd now. We need to...
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, we need to redo this a bit, I presume. But no, it's a bunch of tournament organisers. When Sellick before said that it was Masters types, I think we're talking probably the most prominent tournament organiser in any given state.
Yes, that's correct. So to have a look at all of the people that are on that panel, I think there's only 1 or 2 that are actually Masters players that attended last year.
Yeah, it's a temporary transitory thing. I'll get dumped out of there in no time. I think Tracy's only got 2 tournaments and a few others. But what it does mean is that I'm virtually guaranteed to qualify for the Masters at this point. So that being the case, I can start taking some real chaff to tournaments such as the one on the weekend, where I've got a flying assassin and lots of other silly shenanigans to get up to because I'm secure in my seat of power.
I'm struggling with my list at the moment for that. I've narrowed it down to 2 lists, and yeah, I don't know what to do about it.
6 wingets.
Probably a good
Sorry?
segue into our thoughts for 3rd.
6 different wingets. That's my thoughts for 3rd. That's what should have taken.
Well, I'm taking 2, and I'm also taking a Bangit who is flying, so it's almost like a 3rd wingit who doesn't score. Anyway, 3rd, I am liking it. I still think double ones suck.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I love it. Double ones still suck. Only real bad rule that I can think of, though, I don't really have a problem with any other rule in the core rules at all.
There seems to be a lot of confusion regarding the disengage and withdraw mechanics.
Yep.
I don't think withdraw was explained very well in the book. Like, I couldn't find an actual section for it. It's just mentioned a couple of times.
Yeah, I'd sort of agree with that. It's the only rule that seems to be constantly coming up in all the forums about do I have to disengage? Do I have to move if I disengage? Like all of these sort of things. Can I charge or not attack? And all of these other weird scenarios that keep coming up with badly drawn diagrams. So
some of that's a bit ambiguous if you draw your diagram badly enough, but I find that in real life, in 99% of games, you just don't really have an issue with it. I still think it's reasonably clear, and I guess it is ambiguous in some of those particularly obscure scenarios, but again, I don't think it's such a big deal. Actually, I just thought of another thing I don't particularly like in the base rules, and that's that you have to declare that you're countercharging, which I think wasn't too much of a problem when they had the 1 inch gap. And don't get me wrong, I think it's better that the 1 inch bounce back thing is gone. I prefer just staying engaged. I think it actually makes maneuvering a little bit better. But the fact that you have to declare that you countercharge, I think, is troublesome. And you can get those situations, I guess, where you know your 2 units off on the flank are fighting or something. Like, there's no reason why they wouldn't countercharge. You've left them engaged. You haven't disengaged them, moved them away. They're not wavered, whatever else. You go to the combat phase and you go to roll the dice for them, and your opponent goes, you didn't countercharge, they can't fight. They're engaged, but they can't fight. And that's technically the rule. I don't think I've ever actually seen anyone do it. It's just the fact that the rule's there is mildly troublesome to me. I think if you leave a unit engaged and it's not wavered, it should just be able to fight.
That's right.
Whichever unit's engaged with. I suppose the only problem with it, if you're multiple engaged and you need to declare which one you're countercharging, because that's the one that you're going to strike, and you might actually need to move your unit based on whichever one you countercharge. And I think that's probably the reason they left it in there. But like in one-on-one scenarios, I feel like you could leave put a caveat there somewhere, like if there's no if there's no reason to move your unit and what it's engaged with is clear, it should just be able to strike. And I feel like that's kind of the unwritten rule anyway. Nitpicking, really.
How am I ranked 11th in the new rankings?
I don't know. We go to quite a lot of 1 days. I don't know how. It seems a bit generous.
Does.
To us peeps that go to a lot of 1 days and get a lot of 3rd and 4th places and things like that.
Even though, I guess one good thing comparing both of these two ranking things, I am top goblin player. Yay, go me.
Ooh. Yeah.
Woo.
Wait.
That's why 3rd is the best.
Well deserved.
What about the lists and armies? Because we've had a fair few games now. I don't know about you, Sellick. You keep going on holidays and missing out and stuff.
That's true.
Yeah, have you had a game of 3rd yet, Sally?
Just online. It's just on UB.
Dude, you gotta get amongst it. You're like my internet friend.
Sad face.
Do we feel like the armies are lacking? Because a few units and heroes have been removed from 2nd.
No, there's heaps
Do we
of
feel like
armies.
they need to be expanded or built upon?
I think some more characterful units that do wacky things could be interesting. But for the most part, the armies feel quite expansive, and I always find it hard, whatever army I'm writing a list for, that it's well balanced enough between the units that, I struggle to come up with what the best things are and want to chop and change it a lot. And I feel motivated to change my lists regularly rather than just play with the same thing all the time. So even internal balance within the armies is such that I feel like there's a lot of variety there. And there's so many armies. There's I don't even know how many armies there are, but there's a lot. So there's 30. I don't know.
I totally disagree with the elf list. I love list building, and in 3rd, I've found the elves are the most difficult to actually get a balanced army, which is what I like to play.
Right.
At the moment, it just feels like you try and pick a balanced army, and it's just you run out of unlocks. And because they're expensive, you end up getting forced down the 2 hordes of Palace Guard route.
Right, that's a shame. Is that the internal balance of the list is a bit awry? Because I have heard a lot of complaints about elves more than pretty much any other list, I think. I mean, Abyssal Dwarves and elves, but for 2 completely different reasons, seem to be the ones that are complained about the most.
Could it be more that it's just changing the way that you're used to building lists or playing them? So it may still be good, but you're just not comfortable with it?
Yeah, really good point. So I think there's a fair bit of online squeaky wheel about elves, purely because you can't run 2 hordes of archers and 2 hordes of Drakon riders and then win. So I'm happy that that's out, or not as balanced. But at the moment, I can't take Shamblers, Drakon riders, a horde of archers in a list at the moment. Like, those were my 3 sort of units that would start to be unlocks.
And that's just because of the irregular
Yep, so that means I
status
get
being tapped on.
pretty much nerfed archers, which I'm okay with. I honestly don't mind. But the other 2 are now irregulars, so I have to start putting in other units, which is okay, apart from their points now really starts to stop me getting characters because I've run out of unlocks. So I think it just makes you change your units as well. I have to go out and buy more now because my army is not really valid.
Yeah, I think
That's
the
your
problem
plan,
with
Mantic.
elves before...
Well played, Ronnie.
I think the problem with the elves before is that they didn't have good enough internal balance. It wasn't that they were external, as in, by internal and external, for those who don't understand that, I mean that within the list itself, the units against one another is their internal balance, while as external balance is the army's balance versus other armies. Are they overpowered or underpowered? But internally, elves were... There was no real... at least there must not have been. I never wrote an elf list in second, but I saw enough elf armies to realise that dragons, Drakon riders, and hordes of archers were obviously too good, because those were always the things you saw, like cookie cut, chopped into the army at least, in some combination at least, like 4 or 5 times. And then anything else is filler. We're talking like the last 200 points I'll spend on something else. And clearly that was a problem. But perhaps they hit it with a nerf hammer too hard. Or they didn't bring other things up to be as good enough. And maybe they were just a bit too judicious with the whole irregular stamp, by the sounds of things.
Yeah, that's what I think it is for me. Maybe just have like 0 to 1 on Drakons rather than making them irregular. Yeah, just something like that. So I think 2 Drakon hordes is pretty dangerous, and you can still take it, but it's the unlocks that really starts to cripple you. And if you have a look at the whole list, and I'll shut up about this in a sec, but it just seems to really shape what army you're getting. And the issue with that is everyone is going to be doing exactly the same thing. And it's, if you go down it, it's just going to be 2 hordes of
end up with the same problem. It's just a
Palace
different units causing similar problems.
Yeah.
Crocodile Tears Sellick.
I can see
I'm
how
gonna
you
make
could be
you
hurting
play.
for unlocks in that list, though, overall, for sure, definitely. I can see that. But, yeah, I guess you just got to take some different shizzle. But,
and that's it.
Which
Like,
is
you just
the
gotta
biggest
adapt
thing,
or die.
yeah.
maybe the biggest
Especially
problem
with
is
your
just that Palace Guard are a
army.
bit too good. Is that really what the problem is? You just feel hard to justify anything that isn't 2 hordes of Palace Guard?
Well, dear God, I'm not taking 2 Palace Guard
Looks
hordes,
like they
but
need a
that's not
nerf.
what I want.
No,
Be
you're
regular,
not, but
that's fine.
yeah, I feel like
Just
other people-
just a word to the rules committee and the guys who create units and changes and whatnot. If you're going to update it, don't nerf or buff things. Just change the points. Don't change the way a unit functions. Just change the points. If it's too good, make it more expensive.
I don't mind. I
Genius.
think both could work.
But like when you're building an
Like
army
Phalanx,
to work
for
a certain way, and then they change things,
Phalanx is way
and
more
then
interesting,
it doesn't work the same way. Yeah, that's fine. It's like the new edition. But if then they said, Phalanx is pretty good, so we're just going to cancel that again, and it's just going to reduce your Thunderous Charge by 1. And you had an army of like 2 hordes of spears and cavalry. It just don't change the function of it. Just change the points. If it's too good, make it more expensive. Make it more of a decision to take.
What do we think about war machines now?
I don't see what the big deal is. They're fine. They're still...
It's a fair bit of fuss for nothing. Some of them are a little bit undercosted, I think. Because when
The
you,
heavy mortars
especially
are
when you
certainly
compare-
undercosted.
Yeah, heavy mortars for sure are like one of the biggest culprits. When you compare similar war machines as well, and you pay like 5 or 10 points for, a crushing strength and vicious or something on some of them, and you're
Yeah.
like, hang on, that doesn't really add up, because even with the whole army context thing, it doesn't. A war machine fills a very similar role in pretty much any army, and a lot of them are extremely similar, but the points don't go up quite as much as they should on some of the better ones, I think. But I mean, it's a pretty small thing. It can feel like a large thing though when you play against 3 mortars and they all hit on the same turn, and you're like, "Fuck my life." But
But it's better than second ed, I think. They just need to tweak some of the points on some of the war machines.
Overall, they're a more fun experience for both players, I think, because they don't spike as much, and you don't roll sort of... you don't just feel as though they do nothing when it's on your side of the table and you just keep missing as much because of the main... Like, most of them went from 1 shot to 2. Overall, it's a really good change. It's just there's a few that are probably just, a little bit on the high on the power curve. And like anything in Kings of War and other games like it, is if something's just a little bit too high on the power curve and then you spam it and just copy it a million times over, then your overall army is significantly higher on the power curve. Because, if you're saving 20 points on something and you repeat that 4 or 5 times, you're saving like 60, 80 points, whatever it may be. It's enough to make a difference.
And going back to my previous point, with those heavy mortars, they're on 115 points at the moment. What if they were, say, 145? So they go up by 30 points. Would people still be taking 3 of them?
Totally fine. People would take 1, 2, maybe. I don't know.
Because, an extra 90 points is a big chunk. That's another unit or upgrades, or that changes things.
It
makes you think.
Players, I'd take 0, but like maybe 30 is too much. Maybe it's 20 or something. But yeah.
Well, no, I'm going to disagree there because I think people take them because they've got another mortar, right? They've got 2 options. This one here is just clearly better.
Yeah, exactly. But it's clearly better because of the points, right? If it was more points,
it's 115.
It'd be more of a choice.
Yeah, and the light the standard mortar is just like a catapult that you see in any other army. It's just D3 plus 1, piercing 2.
Yeah,
instead of
and
D3 plus
it's
2,
correctly costed
piercing 3,
it's about the same
and
number
shattering.
of points as every other mortar and every other army.
Yeah, that's right.
I just think that the Vicious tweaks it, so it takes it from a strong mortar to a bent mortar.
Vicious and Elite, I think, are 2 skills that perhaps are slightly costed wrongly. Vicious feels a bit too good for Abyssal Dwarfs, and I think it's the main reason that I think they're the top tier army. Not really the mortars, although it is on the mortars as well, so it's probably part of the reason. But yeah, just that reliability of just auto-wounding on virtually every unit in your army. It's certainly how it feels like to play against it. It's...
increase the points on them, and then we'll be fine.
Well, that's what I think. Yeah. Or if I was sort of making this, I would make it a living legend.
So you can only take 1?
Only take 1.
Overall, though, I never play an army these days where I just look at it and go, "Oh, I can't possibly win," or at least very rarely. And the times when I do, it's usually because I'm like, "Oh, well, this particular matchup." It's not because this army I'm playing against is the most overpowered thing in the world. It's just because I've brought scissors to this. Paper, scissors, rock. This rock off. But then when you take a balanced army, which most of us do with different types of units and stuff in it, that shouldn't happen very often at all.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it's only people that are really breaking it, and if they really want to go down that route and have an unfun game, then that's on them, not you.
Yeah, because we haven't had any complaints about war machines in Australia. Is that because we just kind of ease up on that, or is it just because we use terrain and we just play better, we know how to play against them?
Well, yes and no. I think there has been some complaints, but only there was the 3 mortar list, I think it was, that was at Convict that really just wasn't that fun to play against, but it was one person, not the top 10, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think part of it is there's a lot of people who know how to counter them. There's a lot of good players out there. But probably more than that, it's just a cultural thing of not many people taking a lot of them, and we probably play with a bit more terrain. It's just a guess. I really have no idea if we do, but certainly the more terrain on the table, I know if you play with a lot, first of all, it makes Kings of War, I think, more dynamic, interesting game of manoeuvre, but it does definitely reduce the power of war machines quite considerably. So if you're playing in a tournament where maybe you've got a lot of players and not quite enough terrain to stretch around, you're putting 1 piece less on each table or something, war machines go up in value noticeably. So that might be the reason. It might totally not be the reason, but it just could be. I mean, I played 7 war machines goblin list with the undead, and I was stoked to come up against it. I was like, sweet, this is a great matchup for me, you know? It just depends on your list as well. And if your meta has a lot of war machines in it, there's also a lot of counters for them out there.
I'm loving the 2 scenarios that involve the bluff counters, bluff tokens.
Yeah, they're great.
They are the best.
They're so
Need
fun.
more of that.
And they're tactical fun too.
Hmm.
It feels like you can really get one over on your opponent every now and again. And you feel pretty clever when you're like, yeah, I totally bluffed him into thinking that counter was worth nothing when it was, or whatever.
I don't know how to bluff against you, Huw. You seem to be able to predict where I'm putting my numbers.
I've been good at that so far, but we've only played a couple of games with it, so see how we go. You'll get me one day.
So we've got 2 events coming up.
Yep.
So we've got one this weekend that you guys will be attending.
Leap of Faith.
And then a Leap of Faith, yes, over in Ringwood. And a little bit further out is Convict on the 18th and 19th of July in 2020 over in Springvale in Melbourne. It's a 2-day event, I think, which goes up in different points costs. You can play just one day, so you can either play the day that's
First day or the second day?
Yes, that's it. So it's got four games on the first day, and they're at 2 different point levels. I think it's 1495 and 1995, and then 3 games in the second day, which is 2250. So you can play either of those games or both. I don't know how that's going to do
even more
rankings,
points. Okay, right.
But
Yeah, the whole escalating tournament structure is really fun and a bit different. And because you know the scenarios ahead of time, I presume they're doing that again this year. I'm pretty sure it says in the pack that they are. That means that more so than usual, because you've got 2 games at that 1495, say, as an example, you know those 2 scenarios, so you can try to really tailor your army to those scenarios. And then, your year 1950, 1995, whatever it is.
1995, yep.
That army can be completely different. It's not like it doesn't have to be your previous army plus 500. It can be a totally different. It's the same. It has to be the same race, which I actually think like it wouldn't be so bad if it didn't have to be the same race for those who can be bothered bringing several armies. I don't know if I actually would, but even so, like the extra variety probably wouldn't hurt it. But even within the same race, you can take a totally different army and try to focus on armies that are good for those 2 scenarios or whatever. So I really like the format, and I'm particularly looking forward to it because, unlike the next couple events, I'll be taking a lot of curly nonsense. This event will be round 1. I have challenger. I've thrown down the gauntlet and challenged the best Kings of War player in the world to a duel. So it'll be me v Tracy. Wish me luck, fam. 1495 points only, but so I can always say it doesn't count if I lose. But if I win, my God, does it count?
I've actually been grudged as well.
You've been grudged?
Yeah.
Matt Kroger.
Yeah, he would.
Yeah.
It's a mat off.
A mat off, that's right. Double mat.
He just wants an easy
Does
win.
he take the Sexiest General award if he beats you?
Maybe. I'll allow it.
You cannot be besmirched by a loss.
Yeah, it's at a bowls club, this particular tournament, and each year one of the guys gets a miscellaneous old bitty to judge the Sexiest General Award. So it is it is from a source, unbiased by sweaty man beards and such. So Sellick is famously a ex-Sexiest General. But he might have let himself go over the last couple of years, I don't know.
I certainly have. Chucked on the old kegs.
You look alright, you've hit your level cap for a bit.
I'm looking forward to the mat off as well, that's going to be good. What about you, Bensome? You got to set up to the plate. I challenge you to challenge someone.
Just anyone?
Someone who would be fun to play.
I need a list of people who are going.
Just
I don't think
challenge someone who would be hyped to play. Play AG.
You want to play AG? I beat him before at Convict. I can do it again.
Yes, them's fighting words. I like it.
Alright, sure.
That sounds like a grudge. AG,
why not?
You rook.
Done.
Yeah.
If he accepts. I don't know if he will.
He may have one that... Oh, he definitely would, especially if she's hyped him up with something like that. So I guess even though AG has recently won the Australian Clash of Kings 2020, and he's right up there as number not quite one in the country. He did not, on his way to victory at Clash of Kings 2020, play the best Goblin player in Australia.
That's true.
That's you, Benson.
That's
Yeah, I know.
And there's a board game day?
So what is it? March 14th at the Pakenham Community Centre. So it's a free event, and you get to try your hand at a number of different board games and RPGs and tabletop games, and there will be Kings of War there. And I've been told that there's going to be a legend of the wargame community helping out doing demos. It's AG. Shh. So he'll be there doing demos. And there is a Facebook page if you want to jump on that. So just Pakenham Expo, do a search. It should pop up.
Yeah, I'd love to go down, check out some new board games and stuff. I always like to find a good new one that we can play on Wednesday nights or whatever. And it'd be a good opportunity to get AG's autograph, I guess, as well.
So that's March 14th.
But before we sort of wrap up any further, hot off the press, I'm not sure if you haven't probably dabbled in Facebook too much, but have you heard the drama over in the US Masters?
No, what's
About the dice?
About the dice. They had a cheater. Somebody using loaded dice in the Masters.
Dodgy dice.
Oh, now I've heard everything.
Yeah.
Now you've heard everything.
I think, where do I get those dice? How do they work? How could you not tell that they were loaded dice?
I know, right? So apparently he was he or she, I'm not sure, was using certain dice for certain roles, and it became pretty evident towards the end, but too late, apparently. Dun, dun, dun.
What do you mean too late? Is it too late to test the dice? If they haven't tested the dice, they can't make these allegations, surely.
Well, there were some serious allegations, I'm not sure. They've apparently tested the dice in some shape or form because this person has been lowered down in the rankings of the Masters, apparently.
And it's no more invitations to the Masters either in future?
I don't know. I haven't seen all the repercussions, but sounds pretty serious stuff.
Shit. To be fair, I do try to cheat with dice all the time. I have really bright pink dice to try to razzle-dazzle my opponents into not noticing what's going on.
Well, it's not like you're number one in Australia.
Oh, suspicious.
There's a cloud over you now.
Oh, seriously though, what a clown. I mean, get a life, whatever. He's probably got other issues.
Yeah, it's a game, come on.
Taking a flying assassin does not yet officially count as cheating, so do it while you can.
If you take 3, it does.
Does it?
No, you can only have one that flies, yeah.
That is cheating. Just the one. Just the tip. All right. Well, on that note, have we got anything else to chat about, or can we wrap this?
Well, we've only got one thing that will be put up on Facebook and Twitter, and that's because we want to kick off our army reviews, and we sort of sat around for a little while trying to decide which one to do a review on. And we want you to decide, community.
Let the people get what they want for the people.
The best army reviews on the podcast net, I think. Highest quality, top tier. Which one do you want to listen to?
That's right.
Tell us.
So we'll pop up a little bit of a poll, and we'll see if we can. Well, you guys can vote on it, and we'll read through it and answer those questions for our next podcast.
Disregard it and do whatever we want.
Of course, I will be sending a fully painted assassin to everyone that votes for Ratkin, as is the usual agreement. So, get voting out there, fam.
Are you going to be paying me to paint those assassins?
I've already got about 5. That should be enough.
Oh, yeah, I suppose. Yep, sounds good. All right, we're leaving it there. Vote, and I guess we will hear from you. No, we'll speak to you soon.
See you guys.
See ya.
Bye.
Yeah, direct misfire blowing up the game. Talking many war games is our aim. Rule books to advice, we cover it all. With the best tactics, we never fall. Bensome, Spoon, and Sellick are in the mix. Math hammer doesn't work, it's a trick. Follow along, stay up to date. Comment, like, subscribe today. Come check us out on Facebook and Twitter at Direct Misfire. If you want to shoot us an email, directmisfire@gmail.com.